this piece of food from the fly. Does anyone know how a fly eats? Does everyone know like what is the process of a fly and his eating? How this verse is actual miracle? A fly in itself, when it wants to eat something, it comes onto the food and then it spits out some kind of digestive juice and then it takes it and then it eats it. So you can't even, once a fly even gets close to it, it's already been changed and mutated and you can't even take it back. So this in itself is a miracle where God challenges those that call on to others, that call on to other so-called creators, that if they all gather together, they won't be able to create a fly. We also have, in Islam, we single out Allah as the single sustainer of all of His creation. And I give an example here from the verse of the Quran. If there had been many deities, if there had been many gods, if there had been many things worthy of worship, behold, each of those deities, each of those gods would take away what He created, or each of those gods, one deity would try to overtake another. I give the example of a tale of two bosses. Imagine if you yourself were managed by two bosses, and you were the only person that they had both of each. They would either compete to get to your attention, and you'll be very confused, or they would either split you, into two pieces and try to take one each other, which is impossible, or one will overtake another, and that person will be in charge. This is how Islam thinks about Allah and His perfect attributes. That He is the one that's the sustainer of everything on this universe, everything on this earth, everything in the skies, and that He is the one that, since He is the sustainer, you should ask Him for help. Since He is the sustainer, you should ask Him for your provisions. You can ask Him for your daily needs. We also say that we single out Allah as that everything in the universe is in obedience to Allah. Do you not see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, do you not see that to Allah prostrates whatever is in the heavens and the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, the mountains, the trees, the animals, and many of mankind, they all prostrate to Allah. It is from our firm belief that everything in the universe is in order, and that this order has been sustained by Allah the Majestic, Allah the All-Powerful, Allah the one that controls all the affairs. And this is part of the firm belief in Allah. And all of this constitutes that you should worship Him alone. And one of the final characteristics that we single out Allah is that Allah is full of justice and will hold everyone accountable. Imagine that you had an exam today, right now. One of your classes, you had an exam, and then you asked the professor, you didn't provide us any information, no visual, no audio, you didn't give us any homeworks to have us practice, you didn't even give us the opportunity to learn. See, this will be injustice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is full of justice. And what He does is He wants to hold you accountable. He will hold you accountable in the hereafter. We as Muslims believe that after you die, you will be held accountable for every single cent that you earned, and every single cent that you paid. And every single deed that you did, whether it's small or big, you'll be held accountable. But how would Allah be full of justice if He did not show you a guidance, show you a way, show you the blueprint on which you have to follow to make sure that you know what Allah wants of you? So the way He did this was He communicated through His messengers. Throughout, we as Muslims believe, starting from Noah all the way to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that these messengers were sent to humankind just to show them what Allah expects of them. That these messengers, they ate, they slept, they drank, they lived, they were just like us, and they were like us because Allah would not send angels to guide mankind. Because if this whole world was walking with angels, then He would send the angels to guide angels. But He sent man to guide men. And what they did when they came down, they gave us the details on what to be accountable for. on what are we going to be accountable, the accountability. And this comes to our purpose. They gave us a purpose. The purpose of life, as believed by Muslims and should be propagated to everyone, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, I have not created man or jinn except to worship me. Single out Allah for worship. You might hear the expression many times in the media, there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is His messenger. Some of them say out of jest, but this statement I will further explain, means that you do not set up rivals to Allah. You don't set up rivals to God. You don't say that He has sons or daughters or wives or brothers or sisters, and that you say that He has no deity worthy of worship except Him. You single out the Creator, so you worship Him alone. You single out the one that was providing for all the provisions of the universe, and you ask Him for provisions. Every object is in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so why aren't you in obedience to God? All messengers came with the single message, and that was to single out Allah in His worship. This statement, so we come to this testimony of faith. The testimony of faith in Islam, the purpose of life, is to bear witness and testify that there is none worthy of worship except Allah. That there is none worthy of worship except Allah. That there is no rivals except Allah. Now it is incorrect to say that there is no God but Allah. Why? Because just saying the word ilah, you see that fourth word right here, ilah. Ilah is not just the word God. It means something that is worthy of worship. So when you imply that there is no God but Allah, you say that, other gods are worthy of worship. So what we say as a testimony of faith for Muslims is that bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah. What is worship? Worship is doing all these acts and avoiding giving rights from the Creator to the created. The Creator deserves exclusive rights of your love and your fear and your hope. He deserves exclusive rights to having the best of praises and the best of thanks and the best of requests. He requires your obedience, your prayer, sacrifice, charity, struggle, and the supplication, calling out to Him alone, and worshiping and bowing and prostrating. One of the ways that Islam manifests this testimony of faith and giving rights only to the Creator is that 5 times a day Muslims stand up, they go to the mosque, or they have their own prayer area in their own respected homes, and they bow and prostrate to Allah. They bow and prostrate towards the direction of Mecca, but they bow and prostrate only to Allah, giving rights only to Him, the Creator. Again, there's 2 chapters I want to review before we go into the second part of the testimony of faith. The first chapter is chapter 112 in the Quran, which describes Allah. This describes what Allah expects of us to know about Him. Say, Allah is Ahad. Allah is Ahad, is one of the names of Allah. What does the word Ahad mean? He is one, indivisible. So if you have, for example, you take the example of a pen. This pen is one pen, but it can be divided into a few other things. The cap, the ink, the foam that's inside this thing, and the plastic, maybe the ink. It can be further divided. However, Ahad gives this undivisible nature to Allah. He cannot be divided. He cannot be, His Lordship and His Godship, His Godhead and the Lordhead cannot be divided. It is all singled out to one. He is sufficient. So if you ask Him of everything that is in this whole earth, if you ask Him for the riches of the biggest kingdoms on this earth, this would Allah, our God, can't try to think of God in some form of like image of a man. You can't think of Him coming down, and it does not befit His majesty that He would come down in the form of a human. God is outside His creation. And another verse, which is the first, another chapter, which is the first